Betting on sports can be hard, but hiring Morgan & Morgan is easy. Morgan & Morgan is America's largest injury firm. They have over 100 offices nationwide and more than 1,000 lawyers. Their fee is free until they win. Find out more information at forthepeople.com/bestbets or dial #LAW, that is #529 from your cell phone, and that is FOR, thepeople.com/bestbets. This is a paid advertisement. A warm and friendly hello. Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. We've got a great podcast for you as we're going to be joined in segment number 2 by one of our good friends, Sam Federman, who does such great work over at Mid-Major Madness. Take a look at this great game that we all know and love of college basketball. He does a tremendous job covering the Metro Atlantic, and we are certainly going to be talking about some of the games that we're going to be seeing on Sunday from that conference. He does a tremendous job of taking a look at some of the unearthed gems of college basketball. So we're going to ask him some of the teams that he's starting to feel bullish on with regards to mid-major ranks. We'll take a look at the ACC and the Big East a little bit as well. And then in the final segment, going to get you guys picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this college basketball Sunday as we hit some bank shots. If you do have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you have one of two ways we'll fire those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at Jaden_D1. Keep in mind, letters maybe does not matter. So as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. And the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. Did not get in any Twitter/X questions today, but we had a fun day of college basketball on Saturday. Let's take a look back at it. Try to find some trends and try to get to know these teams a little bit better.
Games from yesterday is Greg buzzing about. Here is the rowdy recap.
Bit of a shocker out there in the Big Ten as Illinois, well, they came up very little. 82-72. USC is able to get the job done in this one as for Illinois, they were ice cold from three-point range. 7 of 32 from three-point range. You did not see Kasparas Yakunuskis in this game. He was out due to an injury. Ben Humerikis was able to give you 15 points, and he was able to go 3 of 8 from three-point range. That means that the rest of the team, they went a nice hearty 4 of 24 from three-point range. Meanwhile, USC, they got a nice performance out of Desmond Claude. 31 points in this one for him. He also had Will Yates be able to contribute 15 points for USC. They win the battle on the glass 37-34, and they won the turnover battle 15-14. So kudos to them. Auburn got a scare on the road against South Carolina, but they do find a way to get the job done. This by a count of 66-63 as for South Carolina, the well ran dry. They scored their last points of the game at the 5:18 mark. They were up 63-62, and then from there you have a whopping 4 points scored by Auburn the rest of the way. So if you were in on the over in this game, you did not get the late game following that you were hoping for, to say the least. Auburn goes 8 of 21 from three-point range, and Gianni Broome only 6 points, 3 rebounds in this game, but you had the rest of the guys pick it up. Miles Kelly had 14 points. Todd Pettiford, he's able to supply the team with 15, and for Auburn, they do find a way to get the job done in this one, as you all said, getting the job done and being able to get the win. UConn, they win and cover on the road against Georgetown, 68-60. The final is Georgetown has been one of your better cover teams in all of college basketball, but what they've really been is a really good under team, as this was yet another one for them. They've now played 12 unders to just 4 overs thus far this season, and for UConn, Alex Karaban was able to supply the team with 19 points. For Georgetown, they go 7-15 from 3, but turnovers have been an issue for them. They play even up on the turnover battle by kind of 15-15, actually win the rebound battle 31-29 as Thomas Sober was able to chip in there 10 rebounds, but team overall was not able to get as many second and third chances as UConn did, as Georgetown does go 15 of 23 at the free throw line, but for UConn, you did have Solo Ball chip in there 15 points. He led the way in the backcourt, and they were able to get the job done. For Kansas, they have played 1 over and 14 unders. They hold Cincinnati to 40 points. 54-40 the final. These two teams won a combined 5 of 43 from three-point range. For Kansas, Hunter Dickinson does his part, 14 points, 12 rebounds. Cincinnati had one guy get to double figures, and Dylan Mitchell. He also went 0 of 2 from three-point range, and for Cincinnati, they also won 1 of 2 at the free throw line. They lost the turnover battle by a count of 12-7, and even though it wasn't necessarily the most appealing game, you did have DeJuan Harris be relatively clean with the ball, 5 points, 6 rebounds, just 2 turnovers. So Kansas, they get the job done. It was a little bit of an eyesore, and things were a bit of an eyesore for Arkansas as well. Arkansas, they lose to Florida by a count of 71-63, and Arkansas has been one of your less than tremendous teams against the spread thus far this season. I believe that they've only got 4 covers thus far this season, and for Arkansas, they weren't able to get it going from three-point range. Second straight game for them, 3 of 16 from three-point range. As a matter of fact, 4 of 12 against the spread for Arkansas. And Florida only goes 8 of 28 from three-point range, with Elijah Martin going 4 of 7 from the outside. So everyone else went 3 of 21 from 3, but they find a way to win the battle on the glass, 49-39, as you had a double-figure amount of rebounds out of Alex Condon. For Florida, they lose their turnover battle 10-8, but with how they were able to win that battle on glass, they do find a way to persevere, and they do find a way to be able to get the job done. Memphis does as well, but it was a little bit hairy against East Carolina, 74-70, so an obvious non-cover here for Memphis. They actually did get up quite comfortably in this game at one point by 17 points. This was a line of 12.5, and then East Carolina was able to make a surge, as for Memphis, just 6 of 23 from three-point range in this one, 5 of 20 for East Carolina, but RJ Felton kept the team in it, 20 points, 13 rebounds. So East Carolina, they were able to hold in there. And for Tennessee, they do get the outright win on the road. They do not get the cover, though. 74-70 final in this one. Whether you took the 5.5 or the 4.5 with Texas, you're able to get there on this one, as this was a little bit of a nip and tuck game. And for Tennessee, after failing to break the 50-point plateau a few days ago against Florida, this was much needed. They go 10 of 23 from three-point range. For Texas, they only go 7 of 25 from the outside, but Trey Johnson continues to be a pretty fabulous freshman, 26 points, as Texas does win that turnover battle 15-5. That's a loss of rebound battle by a count of 41-27, as Felix Opara, 9 rebounds, 3 blocks down low for Tennessee, for them to be able to get the job done. If you're looking at best and worst cover 8 teams in all of college basketball, Minnesota, this is going back to Friday. Non-cover against Wisconsin, they're now 12-2 against the spread. They're your worst cover 8 team in all of college basketball. Grand Canyon is right there at 3-12 against the spread. We did not see them in action on Saturday, but we did see Sam Houston State in action. They get the win over Florida International by a count of 81-74. Problem is, this was a line between about an 8 to an 8.5, and for Sam Houston State, they do go 10 of 22 from three-point range, but they also lost the turnover battle 18-13, and they lost the rebound battle 40-37. So a non-cover out there. If you're looking at your best cover teams in all of college basketball, St. Bonaventure at one point was 13-1 against the spread. They have now had back-to-back non-covers. So as they lose at home to LaSalle in overtime by a count of 83-82. This was a good performance from LaSalle, especially down low, as they were able to play relatively even up there. They won the rebound battle 32-31, and for the Bonnies, they actually do go 11-21 from 3. Lajay Jones, 8 of 9 from the floor, 4 of 4 from 3. You were able to get a 4 of 8 3-point shooting expose as well out of Jonah Hilton as well. But that said, for LaSalle, they were able to get 16 big points out of Demetrius Lilly. There was in there 8 rebounds, and a sort of by-committee approach for LaSalle was able to get it done. As for LaSalle, they won the turnover battle 12-6 as well. So they do find a way to persevere out there. Another team has been very good against the spread is Mount St. Mary's. We'll talk about them in the next segment with Sam Federman, as we're going to be seeing them in action on Sunday. But Houston Christian is now 12-2 against the spread as well, and out there in the Southland, they've been getting the job done. They did once again on Saturday, 81-76 against Incarnate Word as a home underdog, as Bryson Dawkins chips in their 17 points. But once again, one of those collectives that they just did a good job by committee, as Julian Mackey throws in their 16 points. Houston Christian as a whole, they go 11-21 from three-point range, and Houston Christian, they win the rebound battle by a count of 29-28 as well. So not a tremendous performance from Incarnate Word. This was a pretty tremendous performance. So Oregon State, they're now up to 13-4 against the spread. They go out there, they get the job done against Pacific. This by a count of 91-55. As for Pacific, they go 5-21 from 3, 8-20 from Oregon State. And for Oregon State, they only go 26-46 from the floor, but 31 out of 32 at the free throw line. And for Pacific, they lost the rebound battle 36-19. So that was a flattening effort for them. A team that has been getting flattened against the spread thus far this season has been Gonzaga. It's been a little bit less than tremendous for them. They do pick up a win on Saturday by a count of 88-75 over Washington State, but a lot of places they were laying about 17.5 points, so another non-cover there. They're down to 7-11 against the spread, despite the fact that Graham Ike able to throw in there 21 points. And for Washington State, they go 8 of 21 from three-point range. Hold in there. To Gonzaga's credit, they go 10 of 21 from three-point range and win the turnover battle 16-13. So they've been a little bit of an intriguing team. And Washington State now 12-6 against the spread. So they've been able to make it quite a bit of coin out there in the top 25 as well. Duke a win, but no cover against Notre Dame, 86-78. The final Duke was actually up by a count of 19 points with, I would say, 4 or 5 minutes remaining. And then Notre Dame was able to put in there a nice charge. They were up 79-61 with about 6 minutes remaining. Cooper Flagg, though, he stole the show. He had 41 points. He actually was the show. 7 assists, 6 rebounds. For Duke, they go 8 of 24 from three-point range, 30 out of 35 at the free throw line. And Marcus Burton is 23 points. He was able to keep Notre Dame relatively in this game. So that was helpful, and if you're looking for teams that are just completely out of it, the interim coaching regime for Miami is still looking at their first win. They are 4-12 against the spread, and boy, is this not good. Wake Forest goes on the road. They get the job done by a count of 88-78. A Wake Forest team that really has not shot it well from three-point range all season long. 8 of 23 in this one with Cameron Hildreth going off for a 6 of 8 three-point shooting expose. He throws in their 31 points. Nigel Pack still out due to an injury for Miami, and Matthew Cleveland had 21 points, but Miami loses the turnover battle by a count of 14-9, and they drop yet another game. And there are quite a few teams out there in the ACC that have been less than savory, as you've got Virginia now at 5-11 against the spread. They get completely destroyed by Stanford by a count of 88-65. Virginia actually shoots 10 of 21 from three-point range, but they lost the turnover battle by a count of 12-6. They lose a rebound battle 34-23 as Maximine Reyna had 24 points, 10 rebounds. He's able to pace away for Stanford. For Virginia Tech, they do get the job done as they've been a little bit less than tremendous against the spread against Cal by a count of 71-68. Very big anomaly of a game, by the way. Cal takes 19 more field goal attempts than Virginia Tech. They go 17-21 at the free throw line, while Virginia Tech went 11-17 at the free throw line. Cal actually wins the rebound battle in this game in terms of offensive rebounds. They had 17 offensive rebounds. Virginia Tech had 7 offensive rebounds. Cal wins the turnover battle 13-2. They simply didn't hit shots. Andrei Stojakovic, 24 points, but he took 20 field goals to get there. And for Virginia Tech, they do find a way to be able to get the job done out there. So a well-done win for them. In North Carolina, 63-61. They do get the win over NC State, but another non-cover. They're now 6-11 against the spread. Two teams that have been covering were out there in the Big West, and they were doing battle with one another. This was a fun one as UC Irvine, the Anteaters, they find a way to be able to get the job done over UC San Diego, 60-52 the final. UC Irvine now 12-4 against the spread. San Diego is 11-4 against the spread. As for San Diego, 6 of 35 from three-point range, a 1 of 10 three-point shooting performance out of Norden Kaperik. That was not great to say the least, and for San Diego, they actually do win the turnover battle 12-7, but it was UC Irvine winning the rebound battle 45-34 with Devin Tillis along with Bent Lutken being able to combine for 24 rebounds. So a nice effort out there. Now, Cal State Fullerton has not been great against the spread, and they lose and they do not cover against Hawaii. This way, a count of 95-86. On some numbers, they actually did. Some places close this closer to about a 9.5. They were opening up more around an 8.5, so dependent upon your number there. But for Hawaii, they go just 5-19 from three-point range, but 36 out of 38 at the free throw line. They overcome the fact that they lost the turnover battle 18-7 by winning the rebound battle 32-20. So a bad year for Cal State Fullerton truly does continue out there, and then it has been all sorts of good if you've been betting on this team thus far this season. As for Norfolk State, they're now 13-4 against the spread. On Saturday, they're able to get the job done. They get a win and cover over Coppin State 92-69. They were laying in this game a pretty sizable number at about 19.5, so still are able to cover that. As for Norfolk State, 8 of 24 from three-point range. You had all but one of the starters score at least 12 points for them, so they have really been able to get things rocking and rolling. And out there in the Missouri Valley Conference, Illinois Chicago, UIC, they have been able to do a nice job covering some numbers as well. Against the Bradley Braves, they are able to get a cover. They lose on a last-second shot made by Duke Dean, but 61-60 final in this one. Bradley, your top three-point shooting team in all of college basketball entering into this. They go just 7 of 23 from 3, and for UIC, they were able to hold in this game despite the fact that they went 2 of 23 from distance. Reason why they won the rebound battle 46-33. So some massive kudos to them. The Drake Bulldogs, they've been losing a few more games recently. They had that back-to-back game losing streak, but 63-40, they atoned for that. They absolutely take it to Evansville in this one, and Evansville, they had 16 turnovers and 16 made field goals. That's a little bit less than tremendous, so Drake, a very quality win and cover, by the way. Getting back to Florida from a little bit before, they're now 12-4 against the spread themselves, so they have been truly one of your top money-making teams in all of college basketball. A team that has been able to make you a lot of money to the over is South Dakota. South Dakota, 13 overs, 2 unders. They're your top over team in all of college basketball. And in their game on Saturday, no shortage of scoring against St. Thomas. 119-104. St. Thomas gets the job done. They were laying 9.5 points. So you had 9.5 points with South Dakota. They score under 4 points. They still don't cover this game, as this was harebrained. This was crazy for St. Thomas. 14 of 27 from three-point range. South Dakota, 13 of 23 from three-point range. And for St. Thomas, you had 7 different guys get into double figures, and every single one of their scores had at least 16 points. You don't see that very often, and North Dakota State has been another team that has been very good to the over. 12 overs to 4 unders, but 69-50, they take down Denver. North Dakota State also very good against the spread this far of the season, and it's Denver 2 of 21 from three-point range, as it was another nice quality performance out there. North Dakota has been able to go 12 overs to 4 unders thus far this season as well. This one goes over. And for Oral Roberts, they win outright on the money line as an underdog, 83-79. Final in this one for North Dakota, 7-24 from three-point range. Oral Roberts just 4 of 13 from the outside, but Oral Roberts able to shoot 60.5% from the floor, as Isaac McBride wills the team to victory. He was able to spy in this one 28 points. So that was a very nice quality win out there. And by the way, prior to the start of Friday, they have been your top over team. They played their second under of the year a few days ago, so we shall see if that's going to rebound. And for Morgan State, they've been able to do a good job of playing some overs as well. 12 overs, 3 unders. They played a game in which both teams got past 90. 100-95. Howard gets the win. They do not get a cover as an 8.5-point underdog, but Marcus Dockery was able to give the team 25 points, so that was a pretty big one. If you're looking at what we've been getting in the Big 12 as well, Texas Tech has been one of your better over teams. 10 overs, 4 unders, and a push. And for Iowa State, they find a way in overtime to get it done. This by a count of 85-84. Looked like Texas Tech was going to be able to win this game in regulation too, but a few clanked free throws. That was a little bit less than tremendous. Really, both sides had the clanked free throws. As for Texas Tech, they do go overall for the game 19 of 24 at the free throw line, but one at the end of regulation that they wish that they would have back. And then for Iowa State, how about the 26 points off the bench from Curtis Jones to be able to will the team to victory? As for Mr. Jones, he was able to go 3 of 7 from three-point range, so they do find a way to get the job done, and they do find a way to get a win. This has been a very good over team as well. For Villanova, they get the over because for some reason St. John's was up like 9 points with 30 seconds remaining, and they just kept felling. I have no idea what that was all about, but St. John's, they do get a win. They do get a cover 80-68, and this is a total that goes over. The nation's leader in scoring, Eric Dixon, had himself a 18-point performance, a little bit of a muted performance out of him, but for St. John's, it was all about R.J. Lewis. 30 points, 10 rebounds, goes 16 of 20 at the free throw line, as this was a game that involved a combined 56 total free throw attempts, so that was something interesting. And for DePaul, this has been a team that in the Big East, I don't think that they have covered a conference game to this point, 77-63. Xavier goes on the road, they get it done, they win, they cover, they go 9 of 20 from three-point range. Xavier does with Ryan Conwell. 19 points off the bench. Zach Fremantle, double-double. 20 points, 10 rebounds. So a very rock-solid performance out there. If you were looking at some of the nighttime action as well, Mountain West delivered a good one between Utah State and Boise State. Boise State able to get the cover, but it was Utah State who overcame Boise State, going 14 of 26 from 3. That got it done 81-79. As for Utah State, they have a 5 of 7 3-point shooting performance out of Ian Martinez. You had in this game 3 different guys for Utah State be able to supply at least 8 points off the bench as well, though Utah State did go 10 of 22 at the free throw line. That was a little bit less than savory. They went 10 of 22 at the free throw line and 11 of 21 from three-point range. Both of these teams really shot pretty much the same at the free throw line as they did from three-point range, so that's always a little bit of an anomaly, but that was a fun one, and they got the job done out there. Fresno State very nearly failed to cover in overtime, by the way. They were a 12.5-point home underdog, Game goes to overtime. Fresno State loses by a count of 77-66. Almost a calamity with Nevada outscoring Fresno State 13-2 in overtime. And for Nevada, they won this game despite going 5 of 29 from 3 because they won the rebound battle 53-34. So some fun out there. Also some fun with regards to a few other top 25 teams, as you did see a win for Georgia as a unranked team over Oklahoma, 72-62 the final. The old unranked team at home being the favorite, as Georgia was a 6.5-point favorite. They won. They covered this one, as for Oklahoma, just 7 of 27 from three-point range. And for Georgia, they go just 3 of 17 from three-point range. Georgia able to put the clamps down. They're able to get the job done. And then if you're looking at a team that has been very good to the under, I was mentioning Cincinnati before. Both they and Kansas, by the way, going back to that game, a combined 3 overs between the two teams at 27 under, so that's been rather hilarious. Also, P has been a very good team to the under for you, as well as they do fall on Saturday, this by a count of 67-60 at home against Queens NC, but this was the total that was right around about 146.5, and came nowhere close, as Queens NC, they go 6 of 17 from three-point range. Austin P, 11 of 35 from the outside. And Austin P, despite winning the turnover battle 17-7, they lost the rebound battle 53-23. Not great, to say the least, for the old Governators. Lipscomb has been a good under team, 11 unders to only 4 overs thus far this season. This was one of the 4 overs, 86-67. They're able to completely land base West Georgia after it was looking like this was going to be scary. West Georgia actually got up in this game by 15 points at one point, and then West Georgia, they just sort of tinkered out and they sort of ran out of gas, so that was a little bit less than savory for them. And Vermont has also been one of your top under teams, but they've also been the big bad wolf out there in the America East. They do play another under to go to 12 unders to 5 overs thus far this season, but they lose Bryant 73-53 final in this one. And for Vermont, they were able to hold a lead with about 6 minutes remaining in the first half, and then in the second half they got completely blowtorched, as for Bryant, they go 11 of 27 from three-point range, and for Bryant, they were able to force Vermont into 17 turnovers in this one, while they themselves had just 6. You had Earl Timberlake bringing Sexy back with 12.6 rebounds. Always love to be able to say that, so that was a relatively fun one. And if you're looking at what we're getting in college basketball trend-wise, it certainly was a little bit more of an overwhelming Saturday. Overs and unders overall in college basketball this season, they have been able to iron out just a skoge more, as right now over the last 7 days, 166 overs, 165 unders, and the favorites, they have been able to reign a little bit more supreme over the last 7 days, but that's ironed out as well. 170, 164, and 2 against the spread for favorites. If you're looking just at what we got on Saturday, 75 overs to 65 unders, with favorites going just 68, 74, and 1 against the spread. And overall for the season, it has been very much an underdog season, with underdogs being a bit at a little bit north of 50.5% against the spread, 1364, 1331, and 38 against the spread, and overs a slim lead on unders, 1,349 overs to 1,342 unders. So that's what we're seeing right now in college basketball, and that's what we all got on Saturday. Now let's take a look at Sunday's Metro Atlantic action, take a look at the East Coast landscape, and so much more with Sam Federman, who does great work over at Mid-Major Madness. Next right here on Just Kiss It, with myself, Greg Peterson, and out, a part of the Decent Family Podcast. And we're back in lovely Las Vegas for Just Kiss It with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the Decent Family Podcast. Always great to be joined by this man, as we've got Sam Federman aboard. He does such great work over at Mid-Major Madness. Taking a look at this great game that we all know and love of college basketball. He also does his own podcast, the Brackets, Bubbles, and Bid Stealers podcast. He and Jonathan Lidskin do a tremendous job on that front, taking a look at all things college basketball. He's based out there in the northeast part of the country, and you're able to find him at some random gym about 3+ days a week. He takes in a lot of college basketball, does a great job reporting upon it. You're able to follow Sam Federman on the old Twitter side checks, and his first and last name, Sam_Federman. Last name is spelled Federman. And Sam, great to get you aboard. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg, for having me on. I mean, I've been all over the place. Hard to find a lot of time to sit down and talk ball, so glad that we can get this in.
Absolutely. I'm glad to be able to get you aboard as well. And first things first, just what have you seen in terms of the Northeast landscape of college basketball? Because I feel like the ACC and the Big East have been fascinating this year, to say the least, because we've seen Georgetown rise up, albeit a team that did lose on Saturday. But all in all, in the Big East, I feel like that's a really interesting landscape. While in the ACC, it's just all about who wants to be able to rise up to challenge Duke, because it feels like they've just ran and hid with the entire conference.
Yeah, Greg, both leagues are down this year. The Big East was number 2 in Ken Palm last year. They had 3 teams in the top 15. They had a couple other teams in the top 40. This year, there's 1 team in the top 20. There's 5 teams in the entire top 50, and 2 of them are outside the top 40. Just overall, it feels like a down year for the Big East. There's not as many opportunities. They struggled in the non-conference. The bottom of the Big East is maybe not as bad as it has been, but it's still bad. It's still worse than what you would expect these programs to be at. Overall, though, it's just been kind of a down year for the Big East, which is a little disappointing. I feel like we could have seen this coming if like considering Xavier was a high ceiling, low floor type. I do think St. John's is pretty good, and Villanova is surging right now. They've played some really good basketball recently. And then the ACC is just total disaster. That league is, I mean, they're way closer to the Mountain West than they are to the Big East right now. And the Big East is having a down year in the Ken Palm metrics. There's really one team that I'm confident makes the NCAA tournament, and it will be anything in the NCAA. It will be even worth thinking about in the NCAA tournament, that being Duke. I don't really know what to think about Clemson and North Carolina and Louisville and Pitt at this point in time. And the bottom of the ACC is as bad as you'll ever see from a power conference. There's 7 teams outside the top 100, and it feels like there could be a couple more. It is really bad.
Yeah, it has been really rough out there in that conference, but we shall see if anyone's going to be able to rise up. Still do have a little bit of confidence in Clemson perhaps being able to give you a relatively spirited effort, but
I like Clemson, but they have had some disappointing, like I like them eye test. The numbers haven't been there recently. Some of the performances have been not quite as good as I was hoping.
Yep, absolutely. And a 5-1 record in ACC play means quite a bit less this year than it does in past years. Pittsburgh, another one of those teams that I think could be a little bit fascinating as well, but certainly a little bit of a down conference, as Sam Federman, who does such tremendous work over at Mid-Major Madness, is joining me on Coast to Coast Hoops, and then the conference that you truly love is the Metro Atlantic. And what I love about Sundays is Sundays and Fridays, the Metro Atlantic takes center stage. And before we dive in on these teams, how smart do you think the scheduling is? Because with Fridays and Sundays, being someone who's a sports bettor, I'm looking for any sort of college basketball games whatsoever to watch, to be able to bet on, what have you. And I love that the Metro Atlantic gives us a product where so many other conferences don't, and it almost blows my mind that there aren't more mid-majors that take the approach of the Metro Atlantic of putting on their games where nobody else is putting their games on.
I like it. I think it's part of the reason why I started covering the league as much as I did, because the games were at times that I could go. I could always go on weekends, on Fridays and on Sundays. Next week and the week after, we're Thursday, Saturday. Super Bowl week, we're Thursday, Saturday. Last week of the season, we're also Thursday, Saturday. We do have a bunch of the Thursday, Saturday stuff in there. Not 100% sure why, but this week we're Friday, Sunday, and I like it. I do kind of wish that they staggered tip times, like you get one at 6:30, one at 6:45, 2 at 7, one at 7:15, one at 7:30. So like not every game was ending at the same time, but I'm not going to complain.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. That's been one of the big things I've taken a look at with regards to conference. And just what have you noticed thus far in the Metro Atlantic? Because I think that one of my big takeaways is sort of one of the ones I had last year as well. Very much a defense-oriented conference with a lot of teams looking to play relatively slow and controlled. And the teams that have the big men, it feels like the teams are rising and surging right now.
The top 4 teams in the conference standings right now are all outside of the top 250 in offense in Ken Palm and inside the top 161 in defense. 3 of them are inside the top 135 in defense, those being Merrimack, Quinnipiac, and Mount St. Mary's. And then Marist is a program built on its defense. And Marist has played the toughest schedule in the conference, and they're 4-0. They've been really impressive so far. They have been able to lock teams down, but they have taken another element to their game where they have a better offense this year than I believe they have had in the past. They're up 62 spots in offense this year from last year. 2 years ago when they were relying on Gardner, last year they dumped it into Max Allen a lot. Not that Allen was bad, but their guards weren't ready for the roles that they have now. And now that Pasquarelli is ready, and now they have Elijah Lewis, and they have more options, and Jackson Price stretches the floor, I think Marist is as good as anybody in this league. The anybody that would be the pushback would be Merrimack. Merrimack 4-0. That zone defense is stifling, 111th nationally in defense. They're the top defense in the conference in terms of effective field goal percentage. They force a ton of turnovers, and offensively, they don't turn it over. You got a guy like Bud Clark, who is a super steady point guard can score from anywhere inside the arc. And then you've got shooters in Becton, Savage. Atumnu is one of the best defenders in the conference. Trumper can have his time when he needs to. I think Merrimack is built really, really well. Merrimack and Marist, the clear top two at the moment, and the two undefeated teams in the league.
Yep, and with Merrimack, just how difficult has it been for these Metro Atlantic teams to prepare for them? Because this is the first time that they're seeing that zone, and Merrimack isn't generating quite as many turnovers as they have in the past, but they still have that slow and controlled style, still outside the top 350 in terms of total possessions per game, and this is something that I've been picking up on, just a lot of low-scoring slogs of games in Merrimack games, and they typically find a way to pull them out, much like they did on Friday.
Yeah, I mean, I was at Merrimack Sacred Heart. I asked Anthony Latina because he's seen the zone, but a lot of his players haven't. And until you've gone up against it, you don't know how to react to it. That's why Tanner Thomas and Anquan Hill were their two best offensive players. Those were the guys that had really seen it. And you put one of them in the high post, one of them on the baseline, high post baseline. Those are your attack points in the 2-3. And they eventually figured it out and made a comeback. But it took them a long time. And until you've seen it, it's really hard to prepare for it. You can watch as much film as possible, and you can still not really know how to react to it when they first come out. That's what kind of makes Merrimack's zone difficult. They play it really well. Their rotations are on point because they're doing their zone slides all off season. They're putting this stuff in pretty early, and they do a really good job with it. And Joe Gallo knows that it works. He's motivated to make it work, and he gets guys that will work with it.
Yep, absolutely. I've been loving what I've been seeing there, and I think that the team that they're going to be facing off against on Sunday is one of the more interesting teams in the Metro Atlantic as well, because with this Manhattan team, they've been one of the few teams that have been looking to play a little bit more offensive-oriented out there in the Metro Atlantic. I absolutely love the way that this coaching staff in year number 2 under Gallagher and company, they've been able to really find some good offense. I like what I'm seeing out of Will Snyder as well. What do you make out of this Manhattan team that I feel like has been a little bit of a pleasant surprise in comparison to my expectations coming into the season?
Well, yeah, I mean, Will Sidnor is the MAAC Freshman of the Year. And if Sidnor doesn't end up winning MAAC Freshman of the Year, I think that would be a massive surprise. I saw him go for 27 and 10 against Mount St. Mary's, and he was just making tough shot after tough shot after tough shot. He had a couple blocks, too. And when you have a reliable point guard in Jaden Winston running the show, it allows your other guys in Bender and Sidnor to kind of play a little freer. And Wes Robinson has taken a huge step forward this year. Swish Gilliard on the offensive glass is huge. And then when they go to Devin Dinkins off the bench, the shooting on the defensive end, this team doesn't have a ton of size, so it's difficult. Sidnor is 6'8", 205, 200. He's not one of the strongest guys. He's very good offensively. He's good defensively too, but he's not good enough as a 5 defender. So teams can score a lot of points against Manhattan, I think, because they just aren't built for a defensive team. Some of their guys that they expected to play a little bit at the 5 just haven't really panned out at all. Wes Robinson is kind of the guy that they can look to, they can get good defensive minutes from. He didn't have a good offensive game. And then Fraser Roxborough is currently injured. That's another big body that they're down. Gilliard is a tough player, but he's undersized. And Winston and Dinkins and Bender, they can play 3 guys 6'3" or shorter, and then they don't have a 7-footer. They don't even have a 6'10" guy. I mean, they have Marko Ljubicic and Amon Sandu, but those guys are hurt or don't play or both. The defense is obviously not ideal, but I think offensively, there's a ton of scorers on this roster. Dinkins is a scorer. Sidnor is a scorer. Bender's a scorer. Roxborough, when he's on the floor, can be a scorer because he can shoot the ball really well. Robinson is turned into a scorer. Winston, when he needs to be, is a scorer, and he's a tremendous point guard.
Yep, certainly. I've been loving what I've been seeing out of some of these Metro Atlantic teams, and has been nice to see a little bit of a change of style from Manhattan this year. Sam Federman does great work over at Mid-Major Mendes, joining me right here on Coast to Coast Hoops, and feel like I've got to ask you about this game, because typically when you think Metro Atlantic, first team that comes to mind is Iona, but they have been down this year to say the least. The ball security has not been there, and now they go up against a Quinnipiac team that was less than savory for them to start the season, but Savion Lewis was out with an injury to begin the season. How do you take a look at this matchup between Quinnipiac and Iona, because both of these teams have had their struggles this year, but feels like Quinnipiac is rounding into form, and Iona just have been stuck in neutral all year?
Quinnipiac was 3-0 on grit and toughness. That's what Tom Pecora told me after they lost to Marist. And they played with grit and they played with toughness against Marist, and they just didn't make enough shots, and it kind of caught up to them. And that's kind of been their thing all year. They're not making enough shots, but they're playing really well defensively. They're in every passing lane because Amari Monroe is in every passing lane. And they are the number one defense in the conference right now during conference play. I mean, Paul Otieno's been excellent. I mean, the fact that they're able to play Caden Bennett and Jaden Zimmerman out on the floor together with Monroe. I mean, Bennett, when Caden Bennett came in, Tom Pecora liked the IQ and size and everything that he could give on the defensive side of the floor. And he's evolved as an offensive player. And Jaden Zimmerman is a really, really good athlete as a freshman. That's a real contributor for them. And then Monroe, an anomaly of a player in terms of his ability to get in passing lanes with that wingspan and that athleticism. And we know how good Paul Otieno is down low. It's a really good defensive team, and I think eventually they'll kind of come around, start making some more shots, maybe not a lot of shots, but more shots. I mean, hey, they're 4% higher in conference play than they are overall. That's got to count for something. Iona, on the other hand, they have not only not been able to make shots, they have not been able to stop the other team from making shots. Sure, they force a ton of turnovers, but they do a lot more of that in their press. Their guards can get blown by. I think that a lot of their best defensive possessions have been because of the press. They don't have a good half-court defense. They were built on toughness, but they have not been able to match the toughness that we thought they were going to play with. They've been tough, but it hasn't been the hallmark. The hallmark of this team has been, hey, they're going to take a lot of shots. They're going to miss a lot of shots. They're going to get the offensive rebounds. They're going to force turnovers. They're going to take a lot more shots than you, and they're still not going to make them. They have not found reliable point guard play. Adam Jai is talented. He is a good player. He is turning the ball over a good amount. And that is the same with Christian Winborn. Whoever they really put out there, Menard has actually been really good when he goes out there. He's been one of the more surprising pieces for me. But again, still, I'm not certain how much they can get out of him. They don't have consistent shot making. DeJour Reeves shot 38% from three last year. He's down to 32%. Biggie Patterson is down to 23% from three. That was a guy that was a 35% shooter at D2 last year. They're not getting enough shot making from any sources. Adam Jai has struggled shot making wise recently. Clarence Rupert is not an outside shooter. Yafet Mundi is not an outside shooter. They don't have enough scoring at the moment. And I don't really see how that changes until shots go down. And that's kind of been the problem with Tobin Anderson for Iona this year. It's just that they don't have something they can go to and just say, all right, here, we're gonna score on this possession because we're giving this guy the ball or because we're running this play. They haven't found that, and I don't know when they will.
Yep, certainly. It's been a rough year for Iona, to say the least. We'll see if they're going to be able to get online with regards to shot making. And same thing for Quinnipiac as well, shooting less than 27% from three. And I think that when it's all said and done, they shoot better than 26.7% from three-point range. But certainly that's going to be an interesting game on Sunday, to say the least. And just spreading it out a little bit more, because I know that you do a great job just gauging all these teams over at Mid-Major Madness. Who have been a few surprises for you this far this season, whether they're out there in the northeast part of the country, whether out there in the West Coast, Midwest, what have you? Have there just been a few mid-major teams that right now you're keeping your eye on, that you're just really starting to gain a liking to?
I mean, Mount St. Mary's just to stay in the MAAC. I didn't expect them to be this good. They brought back a lot of guys from last year's team, and they completely changed their identity. That's not something that you see. I mean, obviously a new coach. When a team gets a new coach, they usually don't keep most of the roster. But Mount St. Mary's did. They brought in some good pieces as well. They get Xavier Lipscomb back from injury, and they start playing a full court press a lot more. All of a sudden, Donnie Lynn has a 10-5 team, 3-1 in the MAAC. They're really tough. They're experienced. They're tough, and they're big and strong in the front court with Terrell Ard, Dole Adebayo, and JD Cordelia around guys like Lipscomb and Melo Pacheco, who hits a ton of shots. And Dallas Hobbs, when he's healthy, has been really, really good this year. I've been very, very pleasantly surprised with Mount St. Mary's so far this season. UIC, they almost picked up a second big home win in the Missouri Valley against Bradley. Duke Dean, I think, had a last-second shot to beat them, but UIC is a tough team to beat. 10-6 right now. I think Rob Eson has done a good job, put together a good roster. They're 3-3 in the Missouri Valley. And they've already played Drake, Bradley, Belmont, and Northern Iowa. So they could be a tough out in Arch Madness for sure. And then I'm just so excited. I know this pod's going to go out after the game's over, but I'm so excited for UC San Diego, UC Irvine. Like, UC San Diego is awesome. It's one of my favorite teams to watch in the country. UC Irvine, I'm still a little tentative on them without Andre Henry, but that was a really impressive second half against Riverside and then a really impressive first half against Northridge. I'm really in on both of these teams right now, on Irvine and San Diego.
Yeah, the Big West is producing some really good basketball as well. UC Santa Barbara is a team that I'm starting to warm up on. They dealt with some injuries early on during the season, but their road defense has been very good as well. So that entire conference is going to be a fun time. I know that you're having a great time taking a look at the Metro Atlantic and so much more, Sam. So we'll give you the floor here. Let the good people at home know what's on tap for you and how people can follow along on social media and other platforms.
It's going to tone down a little bit in terms of live game coverage, but still a lot of pieces coming out on midmajormadness.com. Probably an uptick in podcasts as well coming up from Brax Bubbles and Bid Stealers. More coverage from more Syracuse coverage as well. Follow me at Sam_Federman on Twitter, Sam Federman on Blue Sky. I try and cross post as much as I can. I don't do a very good job of it all the time. Sometimes on Blue Sky, you can tell that I copy and pasted and I forgot to take the space out at the beginning, but I think that overall I'm getting better at it, and that's kind of where you can find me right now.
Absolutely. Sam does such a tremendous job taking a look at this great game that we all know and love of college basketball. And every single time he joins me, lends such good insights. So big thanks to Sam for joining me on Cuz Hoops, now part of the VC Family Podcast. And coming up next, it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this college basketball Sunday as we hit some bank shots. And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for Cuz Hoops with myself, Greg Hoops Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Always great to get Sam Federman aboard. He does a tremendous job over at Mid-Major Madness. Taking a look at this great game that we all know and love of college basketball. These Sundays always have a lot of action, so it was great to talk a little bit about that. Take a look at the national landscape of college basketball and so much more. So big thanks to Sam for joining me in the last segment. Now it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this college basketball Sunday as we hit some bank shots.
Most financial establishments close at a certain time, but not here. It is time for a side and total on every game on today's betting board bank shots.
Do note that any changes that are made to these plays will be listed up on my Twitter/X feed at @Junior_D1. We are going to be going in Las Vegas rotation order now. The games that were postponed from Saturday, those got it listed at the bottom. So, like Mercer versus Western Carolina, Southern Indiana, Little Rock, those are going to be games at the bottom. The NEC are actually going to be the final games, so there's the games on the extra games board. So, it's a little bit of a herky-jerky board today. I do apologize about that, but we're going to be doing our best to go in as good of time order as possible with the games added from Saturday to the Sunday board at the bottom. Then the NEC games, those will be coming at the end. So how about if we do get things started with 8:37, 8:38 on the card? It is Nebraska on the road against Purdue. Purdue does find themselves as an 8.5 point favorite. Total on this game between 140 to 140.5. This is one that I plan to write up for the under. I did set my total at a 138. It's a Nebraska team that is a top 30 team in all of college basketball with regards to points allowed on a per possession basis. And Purdue has been one of your slower teams in the country. Going into Saturday, they were about 316th in the country in terms of total possessions per game. Now, you do have a very efficient Purdue offense because you've got Fletcher Lawyer shooting well north of 40% from three-point range. As a matter of fact, for this Purdue team, at home, they are shooting 41.2% from three-point range, but it's been a Nebraska team that's been a top 30 team in terms of being able to generate turnovers. Nebraska can be a little bit hit or miss with regards to their three-point shooting, as they're shooting on the road about 32% as a collective, but they've been a relatively good three-point shooting defense, allowing opponents to shoot 31% from the outside, and at north of an 8, I'm going to be willing to take the points with Nebraska. I think that they do a pretty rock-solid job down low in this game, despite the fact that Trey Kaufman-Renn for Purdue has been able to give you 16-plus points, or is in there 7-plus rebounds per game. It is a Purdue team that's outside the top 125 with regards to rebound percentage, while Bryce Williams is supplying this Nebraska team with 19 points, shooting 91% of the free throw line, 41% from three-point range. He has been tremendous, but what are you going to be able to get out of Connor Essegian? Because Juwan Gary has been able to give you about 11.5 points per contest, those in there 4.5 plus rebounds per game, but for Connor Essegian, he just has been all over the place. If you take a look at his last 6 games played, he has scored 15, 2, 7, 22, and 6 points. I mean, you either get really good counter adhesion or you get really bad counter adhesion. But you've got Berkey Buya-Tusel, who's been able to down low give you about 7.5 points, 6.5 rebounds per game. Andrew Morgan throws in their 5 boards with a little bit of versatility himself. This has been a Nebraska team that has been able to do a relatively solid job of not allowing second chance opportunities as well. And with the way that they guard the 3-point line, I do think that this turns into a little bit of a slog. I do think that Purdue, in the end, finds a way to get the job done. Braden Smith, top 5 player in the country in terms of assists per game with 9 assists per contest. He's been able to do a nice job when he's been at home. I'll be able to keep things relatively clean with regards to offense. Team only turns ball over about 11 times per contest, but Miles, Colvin, Kim, and Heidi, who give you about 5.5 points per game, what are you going to be able to get there? So, did some I told 138 and on the under, and I'm going to be willing to take anything north of 8 here. Nebraska, 839, 840 on the betting board. It is Northwestern playing against Michigan State. Michigan State, a road 2 to 2.5 point favorite. Total on this game is 138, and I set my total at 133.5. I've yet to write this one up. I think that when it's all said and done, I will write up that under, though, because you do have a Northwestern team that is a very slow and controlled team. Now, they do a nice job of protecting the ball. Northwestern, fewer than 9 turnovers per contest, so even without Boo Buie, they've been able to do a nice job just developing good, clean offense for Northwestern. They're about 240th in the country in terms of total possessions per game. Michigan State, they're more in the neighborhood about 100th in the country in terms of total possessions per game, so they've been able to crank up their tempo quite a bit. Michigan State just is not shooting it well from 3-point range, though. This is a team that overall for the season has been outside the top 275 with regards to 3-point shooting percentage. Michigan State as a whole, they're shooting about 26.1% from 3-point range on the road. As a matter of fact, that's outside the top 330 in all of college basketball. Jason Richardson has been able to give you about 9 to 10 points per contest. He's shot north of 40% from 3-point range, but other than that, it's been a lot of fast break opportunities, getting turnovers, and being able to run in transition that's allowed Michigan State to have the success. And also Michigan State not allowing teams to get a second chance whatsoever. This Michigan State team is right now in the top 10 nationally with regards to rebound percentage. Jaden Akins has been your main man, being able to supply the team with 14 points per contest, but like what I'm seeing out of Cohen Carr, he gives you about 9 points, 4 boards per contest. Jackson Kaler has been your main rebounder with about 8.5 rebounds per game, but Simon Zapala, the big man who's coming from Longwood, a block, 6 points, 5 rebounds per contest, so these guys have been able to do a pretty rock solid job. And for Northwestern, it's just a 2-man band at this point, as Brooks Barnheiser along Nick Martinelli are both giving between 19 to 19.5 points per game. Barnheiser throws in their 9.5 boards, 4.5 assists per contest. Oh, so versatile there. Martinelli is shooting 42.9% from 3-point range. Now, I will say you've got Angelo Carvino, hopefully I said that correctly, shooting 46.5% from 3. Only gives you about 4.5 points per contest. Jalen Leach has been a nice number 3 option, 13.5 points per contest, but Ty Berry just has not gone back to where he was a season ago. Right now this year, he's still shooting it well from 3-point range. He's shooting well north of 34% from the outside, but when he went down with an injury last year, he was averaging 11.5 points, shooting 44% from 3-point range, so quite a bit of a drop off there. It's a Northwestern team that's doing a little bit of a better job on the glass this year than they did a season ago, with having these ancillary guys like Mason Nicholson, Justin Mullins be able to give you right around about 5 or so rebounds per contest, so do like what I'm seeing there. But this has been a Northwestern team that has been relatively okay at being able to guard things within the 3-point line as well, and they're still good at being able to generate turnovers. This team, in terms of turnovers forced on a per possession basis, Northwestern is once again back in the top 75 in all of college basketball with that regard. And it's been a Michigan State team that has been a little bit better at generating turnovers than they have been in past years as well. There was a time where Michigan State had just completely fallen off the table with that regard. At home, they're a top 150 team in terms of percentage of possessions that turn into a turnover. But that said, I do think that this is going to be a very clean, defense-oriented game, especially with Michigan State not shooting well from 3-point range. I set my line at 1.5, so I had 2+. We'll take the points with Northwestern, and with regards to write-up, I'm in on this total under. 841, 842 on the betting board. Canisius is going to be playing against the St. Peter's. St. Peter's has find themselves as a road favorite of 6 points. Draw this game is 133 to 133.5, and for St. Peter's, I did set them as a favorite of 6.5 points. Not willing to go beyond the 6, but willing to lay the 6. Do have to wonder if this is going to be a little bit of a fat and heavy spot here for Canisius. They finally get their first win of the season. I will say this, St. Peter's is in the top 5 in all of college basketball in terms of fouls committed on a per possession basis, and there's one thing that Canisius does well. They shoot it well at the free throw line. They're shooting as a collective north of 80%. That's a top 10 mark in all of college basketball, and they do have a nice go-to scorer in Paul McMillan, who's been able to supply the team with 20.5 points, 3.5 boards, about 3 assists per contest, shooting 35.5% from three-point range. And Jasmine Singa has been able to shoot about 46.5% from three, throws in there 9 points per contest. Anacopa, he's been able to give you about 12 points per contest, and he actually does shoot 39% from three-point range. So they actually have some shooting on their roster. The problem has been for them really the defense. 360th in the country in terms of opponents' two-point shooting percentage. They're allowing opponents to shoot 60% from within the three-point line from three-point range. Teams are shooting well north of 35% from three-point range, and this is St. Peter's team that's able to just bomb it from three-point range. They're shooting at a clip of about 36% from the outside. Marcus Randolph has been your main man with about 14 points per contest, and he shoots 37.5% from three-point range, but this is St. Peter's team that time and time again, they're one of the best offensive rebound rate teams in all of college basketball as well. They're a top 50 team in terms of percentage of the missed shots that do turn into an offensive rebound, and St. Peter's playing very slow and controlled. They're outside the top 325 in terms of total possessions per game, meanwhile Canisius is looking to run a little bit more, and St. Peter's, to their credit, on the road, they've been able to continue to shoot about 34.5 to 35% from three-point range, so they don't take much of a drop-off there. With regards to being able to generate turnovers, this has been a St. Peter's team that has been able to do a pretty rock-solid job with that regard as well. In terms of percentage of turnovers that turn into a turnover, they're a top 175 team in all of college basketball, and Canisius just not going to give you as much of that. This Canisius unit just has not been able to put on you a lot of pressure. 343rd in the country with St. Peter's, turning the ball over north of 14 times per contest. That allow for some good, clean offense. I did set my total at 132.5 just because I don't think the Canisius are going to get a lot of second chances. I think that St. Peter's, even though they're a little bit undisciplined, even though they do foul quite a bit more than they should, I think that they're going to stay away from that. I think that they know the scouting report here. I think that St. Peter's, a well-coached team under Bashir Mason, finds a way to get it done on the road. I'm willing to lay up to 6 with St. Peter's. So I total 132.5, so at the 133 in on the under. 843, 844 on the betting board. It is Iona in the playoffs. Quinnipiac. Quinnipiac is a 1-1 half-point road favorite, and your total on this game is 142, and I did set Quinnipiac as a 2.5-point favorite. I'm going to be willing to lay the one. The big thing with Quinnipiac is that I think that they take better care of the ball. This is an Iona team that they continue to be outside the top 355 in terms of ball security and in terms of turnovers on a per possession basis. And for Quinnipiac, they were dealing with an injury a little bit earlier in the season to Savion Lewis. He's back, and he's been able to give the team a little bit over 5 assists per contest. Scoring just has not been there for this man, as he's only been able to give you about 5.2 points per contest. And the team in general has really struggled with their shot. They're shooting as a collective 26.7% from three-point range. That's outside the top 350 in all of college basketball, but they do a nice job on the glass with Amari Tice, Paul Otinho being able to give the team a combined 15.8 rebounds per game. Tice has also been able to generate 2.8 steals per game. That's a top 15 mark in all of college basketball. And this has been a Quinnipiac team that has been an above-average team in terms of generating turnovers. I'm not going to say that they're amazing or anything like that, but they're certainly within the top 125 in terms of turnovers forced on a per-possession basis. Meanwhile, this Iona team, 330th in terms of points scored on a per-possession basis. And if you just take a look at the home numbers and the home numbers only, they are a bottom 15 team in terms of points scored per possession. This despite the fact that you've got DeJour Reeves, who's been able to do a pretty rock-solid job. Give the team 14-plus points per contest, and you're going to be looking to the backcourt for a lot of underclassmen to be able to step up. And Nanji has been able to give you 3 assists, 11.5 points per contest, but it's just led to a lot of unclean offense, 16.5 turnovers per game. Now, Iona does a great job of generating their own turnovers. They're a top 15 team in all of college basketball in terms of turnovers forced on a per possession basis, but they allow opponents to shoot 37% from three-point range. If Quinnipiac can't get right with their three-point shooting in this game, I think that that's a ship that has sailed. But other than Matt Blonich, pretty much everyone is back from a Quinnipiac team that I'm not going to say they were amazing from three-point range last year, but they shot about 35% from three-point range. I do think that that is going to be ticking northward as the season does go along with Quinnipiac. They certainly should be able to win the battle down low, although Iona has been a top 75 team as well with regards to rebound percentage. You've had quite a few guys be able to step up in this front court to be able to help out, but when you're having to go up against guys like a Jaden Zimmerman as well, who's been able to give the team 9.5 points, does a solid job being able to shoot about 36% from three-point range. That does give this Quinnipiac team another dimension. And with Iona down low, you've been able to have James Peterson, great name. He's been able to give you right in that neighborhood about 6 boards per contest. Yafet Mundi has been able to chip in there 6.5 boards per contest as well. And getting back Clarence Rupert helps out as well, but in this circumstance. I do think that Iona just not going to be able to take good enough care of the ball, and I do think that Quinnipiac going to round into form with regards to that offense. I did set my total at a 144.5. I'm in on the over, and I'm willing to lay up to a deuce here with Quinnipiac. 845, 846 on the betting board. Mount St. Mary's is going to be playing us the Sacred Heart. Sacred Heart does find themselves as an underdog of 4.5 points on this game between 147.5 to a 148. I'm actually writing up the under in this spot. Set my line at a 144.5 with regards to the total. Both of these teams outside the top 200 in terms of points scored on a per possession basis, and in the case of Sacred Heart, this has just been a team that has not been able to get a ton generated. Down low, they are shooting about 39.5% from three-point range on the road, compared to 30.7% from three-point range at home, but they go up against a Mount St. Mary's team that's a top 25 team nationally with regards to opponents' three-point shooting percentage, so they've done a nice job cutting off the three-point line there. I do think that they're going to be able to do so in this game as well, but also with this Mount St. Mary's team, big issue that you've got with them is the turnovers. Their turnovers per possession basis is a bottom 50 mark in all of college basketball. As a matter of fact, it's a bottom 25 mark in all of college basketball, and for St. Mary's, you do have a lot of moving pieces in the backcourt. I know that they've been dealing with a ton of injuries, but I do think that they're going to be able to do a nice job down low in this game because you do have a trio of guys that will be able to give you at least 6.3 rebounds per game. Dola Edbayo, Terrell Art, along with Jetty Cordelia. These three guys have been able to combine for about 33 points per contest as well. Art has been able to give you 2.5 assists per contest for a little bit of facilitation there. Dallas Hobbs has been dealing with an injury. He's been out the last 4 or 5 games. He's been one of your main three-point shooters at about 34%, though. You've been able to get quite a bit of production out of Carmelo Pacheco, who's been able to give you 8 points. She's 41% from 3 points. Just not a facilitator, though. So Xavier Lipscomb, who traditionally is more of an off-the-ball three-point shooter, he's been having to give out about 4 assists per contest. That's caused things to be a little bit more herky-jerky and wonky there. With Sacred Heart, you've been able to get quite a bit of production of your guys in the backcourt, but the front court has been leaving quite a bit of something to be desired right now. You've got Amari Stewart, who's been able to give you about 12 points per contest, and then you've got Anquan Hill and along Tanner Thomas. Both of these guys are versatile big men that are able to combine for about 25.5 points per contest. They both give you about 5 rebounds per game, and Hill has been able to shoot 43% from three-point range. You've also been able to have Bryce Johnson down low, give you about 8.5 points, 6 rebounds per contest, while you've been able to have Makai Comer step up, give the team 5 assists per game, but it is a Sacred Heart team that they are turning the ball over nearly 13 times per contest. They're a little bit more of an up-tempo team, but not a super up-tempo team that just does not find a way to be able to get to the free throw line as well. I do think that this game, as a result, is going to be a little bit more, shall we say, lower scoring. It's a Sacred Heart team that's okay, but not great at generating turnovers, so I did set my line at 2.5 with Mount St. Mary's being the favorite, so wanted to lay up to a deuce here with Mount St. Mary's with this number at a 4, 4.5 like I'm seeing right now. Want to take those points with Sacred Heart, and then with regards to the total, in on the under semi-total, 144.5. 847, 848 on the betting board. Another game that I wrote up. Washington is on the road against Michigan. Michigan 14 to 14.5 point favorites. So this game between 153.5 to 154. This Washington team has been less than tremendous, to say the least. 199th in the country in terms of points scored on a per possession basis. 199th in the country with regards to rebound rate. Going against a Michigan team that's in the top 25 with both of these regards. I set Michigan as a 21-point favorite. I'm willing to lay it and wrote it up there. I just don't think that Great Osabor is going to be able to match up with the men down low that you've got for Michigan, as Vladislav Golden has actually been your top scorer. Well, Danny Wolf has been oh so versatile. He's able to give you 13 plus points. He's able to throw in there right around about 10 boards, 3.5 assists per contest. It's actually Golden who's leading the way in terms of scoring, and this Michigan team is a top 35 team with regards to their three-point shooting percentage. Will Shedder is a high 30s three-point shooter that actually shot north of 50% from three-point range last season. Nobari Burnett has been able to shoot north of 40% from three-point range as well, so these guys have been cooking, and for Washington, while you've got Great Osabor, who's able to give you 13 points, heroes in there, 8.5 boards, 3.5 assists per contest. He leads the team in pretty much darn near every single one of these categories. You just don't have a lot in terms of the backcourt. You've got Zoom Diallo, who's been able to come on a little bit more recently. He's been able to give you about 9 to 10 points per contest, but you need a little bit more support there. I like what I'm seeing out of Tyler Harris. He shoots over 40% from three-point range, but this Washington team very lacking with that regard. It is a Washington team that's okay at being able to generate turnovers, but defense has been very lax, to say the least. This is a team that they have given up at least 69 points in all but 2 of their games ever since the beginning of the month of December. This is a Michigan team that has been able to be in the top 35 in terms of points scored on a per possession basis, despite their turnover woes. Like, Michigan is outside the top 325 in terms of ball security. Despite that, ever since their game against Wisconsin, which led off December, they've been able to break the 84-point barrier in all of their last 6 games. This has been a Michigan team that has been a machine with being able to get to at least 75 points in 11 out of their last 13 games as well. I do think that they're going to take it out on Washington in this one. Washington well outside the top 100 in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. Don't know if Washington quite does their part with regards to this total. I did set mine at a 155, so right now seeing what we've got here, we're right now about 153.5, 154. Going to be willing to take a shot on the over, and I'm going to be willing to lay with Michigan and wrote that up. 849, 850 on the betting board. Rider is on the road facing off against Niagara. Niagara does find themselves as a 5.5 point favorite. Total on this game is 135, and with Niagara, I did set them as a favorite of 6.5 points. I'm going to be willing to lay the number for Rider. This is becoming quickly a big giant fade as they're outside the top 300 in terms of just turnovers on a per possession basis, and this is a team that just flat out can't shoot from 3-point range. I was expecting a little bit more from this backcourt, as you've got TJ Weeks along Jay Alvarez, who have been pretty rock solid. These two guys could buy for about 24.5 points per contest. Weeks is shooting 32% from 3-point range. I think that that'll go northward. Alvarez has shot 38% from 3-point range. Nobody else on the roster that's averaging at least 1.9 points per game is shooting above 28.6% from 3-point range, and nobody else that's averaging north of 2.2 points per contest is shooting above 22% from 3. That's a big giant issue. Like Zion Cruz has been able to give you 9 points, throws in there a few boards and assists and a half per contest, but he gives you nothing from the outside. This is a Rider team that's going to be very much relying upon the rebounding. They're a top 175 team with regards to rebound rate, and in terms of being able to grab offensive rebounds, as you've got Ingram squared, Tariq Ingram, who's been able to give you about 10 points, 6.5 rebounds per game, and then F.E. West Ingram has been able to give you more like 3.5 rebounds per game, but they're going to be a little bit outgunned there, in my opinion, by the fact that you've got a Niagara team that has been able to do a nice job, be able to pop it from 3-point range. You've got a guy in Jahari Williamson, who has come over from Valparaiso, give this team 10.5 points per contest, shooting 42.5% from 3-point range. Justice Smith, along with Zion Russell, both shoot 40+% from the outside. Then you've been able to have Jalen Martinez down low, be able to give you about 5 rebounds per game. Aldudun, who's been able to come in as a versatile piece, he's been rock solid with a steal, 11 points, 5 rebounds per game, and when it comes to this Niagara team as well, if you get into a late game scenario, of their top 6 scorers, 5 of them shoot at least 80% of the free throw line. It's a Niagara team that as a whole, they shoot about 74.5% at the charity stripe. Now Niagara allowing opponents to shoot 37% from 3-point range, so you've got yourself a situation of something's got to give. Rider's been awful from 3-point range. Niagara can't guard the arc to save their lives. I just think that Rider's cold 3-point shooting continues. They've shown no signs whatsoever of being able to improve. Both of these teams, while outside the top 250 in terms of total possessions per game, and I do think that this Niagara team does just enough on the glass to find a way to be able to get the job done. Set by line at 6.5. I'm going to be willing to lay up to 6 with Niagara. Set by total 134.5. Also in on the under. 851, 852 on the betting board. Fairfield is going to be on the road against Marist. Marist, a 6.5 to a 7-point favorite. Total on this game is between 135 to 135.5, and with Marist, I did set them as a favorite of 8.5 points. I'm going to be willing to lay the number. Fairfield has taken a big giant drop off with regards to their offense, while outside the top 225 in terms of points scored on a per possession basis. And really, other than Prophet Johnson, you don't have a lot going on for the team, as Prophet Johnson leading the way with 12 points, 7 boards, throws in there a few assists per contest, as well as Jamie Burgeons has also been able to give you about 3 assists per game. But this has been a Marist team that, even though they've struggled a little bit with their defense in comparison to past years, they're starting to have it come back to them. And this is a Marist team that has been able to do a tremendous job on the glass. They are number 30 in all of college basketball with regards to rebound percentage. Fairfield, more in that neighborhood, about 223rd, so I don't think that they're going to be able to match up there. And this is a Marist team that typically they do a nice job with their 2-point shooting defense, and they continue to do so, but that perimeter defense is getting much better. At home, they're allowing opponents to shoot about 32.5% from 3-point range. It's a Fairfield team that, to their credit, they have been able to do a relatively solid job on the interior, but from the outside, in road games, they're allowing opponents to shoot 39.8% from 3. I don't think the Marist is going to shoot quite that well, but Josh Passarelli, 18 points, 1.2 steals per contest. He shoots 44.9% from 3-point range. Outside of that, you don't have a ton of outside shooting, though you've got Jaden Daughtry, who's been able to shoot about 40% from 3. He chips in there about 6.6 boards per contest. It's a Marist team that does need to clean up the turnovers, about 12.5 per contest. Neither of these teams amazing at generating turnovers. Neither of these teams necessarily terrible with that regard as well, but we are noticing that this Fairfield group has been able to do a little bit of a better job on defense as well. To their credit, they have now given up 67 points or fewer in 3 of their last 5 games, and I was mentioning it with this Marist team. If you look at regulation and regulation only, last time they gave up north of 70 points was to Manhattan. That was on December 8th, so that was 6 games ago, and they have really only given up north of 70 points twice over the course of their last 10 games. So I do think the Mariners going to do a nice job buckling down here, especially having Elijah Lewis giving you 13 points, 5 rebounds per game. I do think the Mariners finds a way to be able to get it done. And what I think is going to be a little bit of a lower scoring game. Mariners back outside the top 275 in terms of total possessions per game. Fairfield just not playing the same tempo that they did 8 seasons ago. Fairfield down to about 290th in the country in terms of total possessions per game. So somebody total 132.5. I'm in on the under. And with Mariners, I did set them as an 8.5 point favorite. So I'm going to be willing to lay up to 8 with them. 853, 854 on the betting board. Merrimack is going to be playing us Manhattan. Here's another game that I'll write up. Thought this game between 141.5 to a 142. Merrimack is an 8 to an 8.5 point favorite, and talked about this game a little bit with Sam Federman. I'm in on the under. Merrimack, once again, they're back outside the top 345 in terms of total possessions per game. They've been able to do a rock-solid job defensively, as this is a Merrimack group that they're back within the top 50 in terms of turnovers forced on a per-possession basis at home. Now, Will Sidner has been tremendous for this Manhattan team. He's able to supply you with about 16.5 points, 7 boards, shooting 42.5% from three-point range. And Manhattan, a top 125 unit in terms of points scored on a per-possession basis away from home. It's a Manhattan team has allowing opponents to shoot well north of 34% from three-point range as well, so that's been a little bit of an issue. As for Manhattan, they've now given up 75 plus points in each of their last 4 games. That's a little bit of a misleading number though, because they went to overtime against Presbyterian. They had allowed 73 in regulation there. The Siena game goes to double overtime as well. That was another game where I feel like both of those teams had gone past 75 in regulation, but that still warps the numbers quite a bit. Meanwhile, for this Merrimack team, they've just been able to do a rock solid job with regards to their defense, and you're just not going to get a ton of offense out of this Merrimack team. Merrimack has crossed over the 70-point plateau once since their win over Troy in late November, so since the beginning of the month of December. But for this Merrimack team, you do have Adam Clark, who's the best scorer out there on the floor. 5 assists, 20 points per contest, and Merrimack is shooting at home well north of 35% from three-point range. We've seen a nice rise there. Sean Trumper is able to give you 9 points, 5.5 rebounds per game, like what I'm seeing out of Matt Beck, who's been shooting in the mid-30s from three-point range, throws in their 8 points per contest. And Merrimack has been a better rebounding team, with having Brian Entaminu being able to give you about 5.5 or so rebounds per game. Flip side for Manhattan, Jaden Winston is flowing some good clean offense, giving you about 5 assists per contest. But this is a Manhattan team that I think is going to have a tough time taking care of the ball, as they do turn the ball over right around about 12 times per contest. Not great, not terrible for their overall tempo, but I know that this was mentioned by Sam Federman as well. Fraser Roxborough dealing with a little bit of an injury. I think that that's going to be hurting them quite a bit as well. Was able to give the team about 7.5 points, was a good three-point shooter as well. So did set my line at a 4.5 with Merrimack. So at an 8, 8.5, I do think that we've went a little bit too far. I think that Manhattan holds in this game, but I do think that it's going to be another low-scoring slog. I wrote up the under, and I'm willing to take those points with Manhattan. 855, 856 on the betting board. Wright State, you hope to be the right side on the road against Robert Morris. This is a pick'em game with your total between 146.5 to a 147.5. So by total 147.5. I'm in on the over, and with this Robert Morris team, made them the 2.5 point home favorite. I'm going to be willing to take them as a pick'em. This is a Wright State team that's a little bit better with their defense than they have been last year, but still outside the top 250 in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. And Wright State is still going to give up a lot of wide open looks from three-point range. Wright State is right now in terms of opponents' three-point shooting percentage about 228th in all of college basketball. That goes to about 37.9% away from home. And this is a Robert Morris team that they do turn the ball over north of 13 times per contest. But Wright State, again, they're just not a team that necessarily comes up with a lot of turnovers. Now, to the detriment of Robert Morris, they are allowing opponents to shoot north of 35% from three-point range at home as well. That's a big reason why I'm going to be in on this total over, as it's a little bit of a top-heavy team in Wright State, but it is a Wright State team that does have some very good top-flight scoring, with having Brandon Noel throwing in there 18.5 points. He's been able to supply the team with 7.5 rebounds per game. Keaton Norris has become a really nice facilitator as well. 4.5 assists. Only gives you about 6 points per contest, but when he pops it, he hits it, shooting about 41% from three-point range. And for Wright State, among their top 5 players with at least one made three thus far this season, all but one of them shooting at least 39% from three-point range. Alex Cuba-Garce has been able to shoot 39.5% from 14 points per contest, but again, that lack of defense is big, and I think that Robert Morris is going to be able to win the battle down low. Alvaro Folgarius, he's a 6'9" big man that comes in from Spain. He's right now in the top 10 nationally with regards to rebounds. 10.5 rebounds, 12.5 points, a block per contest. He also shoots right around about 31.5% from three-point. So, loving what I'm seeing there. Cam Woods was dealing with an injury and was out for 5 games earlier this season for Robert Morris. He's been able to transform the offense. Not a guy that's going to light you up from three-point. He's only shooting about 25% from the outside, but has been able to do a nice job being able to supply for this team right in the neighborhood about 15 points, 4 assists per contest. Again, team needs to clean up some of those turnovers, but you've been able to get some nice ancillary scoring as you're getting about 11.5 points out of Josh Omajafo, who's been able to come in. He's been able to give you in the mid-30s from three-point range in terms of that shooting, and he's been able to supply the team with at least 11 points in each of the last 5 games. And I do think that Robert Morris is going to be able to do a pretty steady job on the glass here as well. They're right now 44th in the country in terms of defensive rebound percentage, so they don't allow a lot of second and third chances. Meanwhile, this is a Wright State team that they're going to give you a few more of those. They're about 110th with this regard as well. I do think that Robert Morris, despite the turnover woes, going up against a defense that doesn't necessarily put on you a lot of ball pressure, finds a way to get the job done. I do think that both of these teams are going to be crossing over that 70-point barrier. Set my number at a 147.5 with regards to total. And on the over end, we'll take Robert Morris on this pick'em line. Made them 2.5-point favorite. 857, 858 on the betting board. Another game that I wrote up as you've got Colorado playing us to West Virginia. West Virginia is a underdog of a point. Total on this game, 134.5. I said Colorado as a 2.5-point favorite. I wrote them up when this was a little bit closer to a pick'em. I'd be willing to lay up to a 2 with them for Colorado. I just think that they have such a big home court advantage, and that's signified by their just overall offensive and defensive metrics in terms of both points scored and points allowed on a per possession basis. It's more than 14 points better when they are at home rather than when they are on the road. So that's something that you do need to be mindful of. And this is a West Virginia team that is just all sorts of banged up. Tucker DeVries has been out of the lineup for quite a while, so that means that Javon Small has to do a little bit of everything. And Javon Small has been able to come up very big for this team. He's supplying you with 19.5 points, throwing in there about 5+ boards, 5 assists per contest, and Amani Hansberry has been playing through injury all throughout the season. He's been able to give you about 6 boards per contest, but you can tell that he hasn't been himself. In the last 3 games that he's taken the floor, this does include that game against Mercyhurst where he only played in 1 minute in that game, so take what of it as you will, but a combined 14 points and 6 rebounds in those 3 games. So you can tell that there's a little bit of diminishment there. It's a Colorado team that has quite a bit of stretchability, as you've got someone in Elijah Malone who stands right around 6'10", giving you 11 points, shoots in the mid-30s from 3-point range. Trevor Baskin has not necessarily shot it from 3-point range very well, but at 6'9", 6 boards, 9 points per contest, and Julian Hammond throws in there about 13.5 points per game. The biggest thing for Colorado, cleaning up the turnovers. They've been turning the ball over about 15 times per game, but West Virginia, even though they do a nice job of being able to generate turnovers at home, well outside the top 125 in terms of turnovers forced on a per possession basis when they're away from home, and this is a West Virginia unit that overall is shooting about 34.5% from 3-point range. They keep things relatively clean there. Toby Akani has been able to give you 8.5 points per contest, but another one of those teams that sees a little bit of a drop-off with regards to their offensive metrics when they do leave home. It has been a West Virginia team that has been very good with their defense, by the way. That needs to be pointed out. This is a squad that has now given up 63 points or fewer in all but one of their games ever since the beginning of the month of January. That was their most recent game against Arizona. And this has been a Colorado team that has struggled a little bit defensively, giving up 70+ in 4 of their last 5 games. So good old situation of something's got to give. I did set my total at a 134.5. Right now I'm seeing a 135 out there, and on that 135 under. And I'm willing to take Colorado on this rather pick 'em line slash as a 1-point favorite. 859, 860. Another game that I'll write up as you've got Oregon on the road against Penn State. Penn State does find themselves as 2.5-point home underdogs. And your total on this game, it is 154. And I like Penn State outright on the money line. Set them as a 3.5-point favorite. This Penn State team, despite what we saw a few days ago against Illinois, a very much less than savory effort there. They're still a top 40 team in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. And this is a group that does an amazing job of being able to generate turnovers, as they are right now in the top 15 in terms of turnovers forced on a per possession basis. To the credit of Oregon, they've actually traveled quite well all season long. They're a top 75 team in terms of both points scored and points allowed on a per possession basis away from home, but a squad that certainly does have their warts. And you've got Nate Biddle, who should be able to control things down low, give you about 14 points, throws in there 8 rebounds per game, but Yannick Conan Niederhauser has been able to give you north of a block and a half per contest. He's been able to give you 7 boards at 7 feet tall. He's got some relatively good versatility, so that's going to be big. And for Oregon, they've just really struggled here in Big Ten play. In their 5 Big Ten games, they're giving up 78.5 points per contest, with opponents shooting north of 44% from 3-point range. Now, it's a Penn State team that's had a few struggles from the outside recently. Ace Baldwin is shooting less than 30% from 3-point range, but I do think that he's going to be able to bounce back and get a little bit more online here, as he's still been able to give the team good production in the backcourt with about 8 assists. He's generating 2 steals per contest, and main guys for the outside for this team have been Zachary Hicks, who's shooting about 43.5% from 3-point range, throwing there 12 points per contest. And then you've had Nick Kern, who's been able to give you some relatively good versatility, 12.5 points per contest. So he's not really giving you a lot from the outside either. You've had a little bit more Dominic Stewart along with Javon Carter, but both of those guys very much ancillary guys. On the flip side for Oregon, you've had Keyshawn Bartholomew do a really good job of being able to pop it from 3-point range. And this is an Oregon team that, as a whole, they're shooting about 35% from 3-point range. Bartholomew has been able to shoot 44% from 3, 10 points per contest. Jackson Shell said we've seen him go a little bit nuclear here recently as well. He's supplying the team with about 12.5 points per contest as well, like what I'm seeing there. And really outside Nate Biddle, it's sort of a whole is greater than some of its parts approach with regards to a lot of these guards, as you've also now got Supreme Cook in the fold, who's been able to give you a bit of something down low, 6.3 rebounds per contest. But I do think that Penn State going to do a nice job of guarding the perimeter, unlike a lot of these teams that they do a nice job of generating turnovers. This team's still relatively solid at being able to guard the three-point line. They've been one of the better defenses when they've been at home thus far this season. I do think that the, shall we say, East Coast road trip for Oregon is going to take a little bit of something out of them. I did set Penn State as a 3.5-point favorite. I do like them outright on the money line. Set my total 159.5. Oregon has really been giving it up in Big Ten play, and Penn State top 75 unit in terms of total possessions per game. So in on the over and in on the money line. 861, 862 on the betting board. UAB is going to be on the road against Florida Atlantic. Florida Atlantic does find themselves as a favorite of 3 points total on this game between 162 or 162.5, and with Florida Atlantic, I did set them as a 3-point favorite, so right now I'm going to be waiting upon a little bit of line movement here. It's pretty much, I'm seeing threes across the board. This did open up at a few places at more around a 4, and at a 4, I'd be willing to take the points with UAB. It's a UAB unit that very much is geared around being able to generate turnovers and being able to win from within, as you've got a guy that I absolutely love in Yaxel Lendeborg, who's been able to give you 9 boards, 15 plus points per contest, and he's been one of their top 3-point shooters thus far this season. As for UAB, it's a collective that shoots less than 33.5% from 3-point range. So you have been able to get a little bit more in the backcourt from this team as well, although Landeborg is still actually leading the team in regards to assists per contest as well, with about 3.8 assists per contest. He actually leads the team in all 5 major categories. You've also been able to get about 1.4 steals, 10.5 points per contest out of Jabari McGee. McGee has been able to shoot about 36.5% from 3-point range, and to the credit of UAB, they do shoot about 76% at the free throw line. You've got a few guys like Tony Toney, who's been able to give you about 8 points, shoots 74% the charity strike, 40% from 3-point range, and then we've had Alejandro Vasquez shoot well at the free throw line, but down to about 27.5% from 3-point range. Flip side is a Florida Atlantic team that is outside the top 225 in terms of opponent's 3-point shooting percentage, outside the top 150 in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis, but lots of switchability down low as well. Out of your top 5 scores, 4 of them do give you at least 4.3 rebounds per game, including 6'11" Baba Miller, who's been able to shoot 38.5% from 3-point range. It's a Florida Atlantic team as a whole. They shoot 35% from 3 for as up-tempo as they are. They're a top 35 team with regards to total possessions per game. They're doing a relatively okay job being able to take care of the ball. They're in that neighborhood of about 12 turnovers per contest, so that's completely acceptable in this case. And with regards to UAB and their defense, it's been a little bit lackadaisical this year as well. For UAB, in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis, they're checking in 171st in all of college basketball, and they're letting up about 16.5 points more per 100 possessions when they're on the road rather than at home, going against a Florida Atlantic team that has really been running it, gunning it, and has been much more effective when they've been at home rather than on the road. This is a Florida Atlantic team that is in the neighborhood about 105th in the country in terms of points scored on a per possession basis. I do think that Florida Atlantic finds a way to get the job done, though UAB has just a skoge more down low and does a little bit of a better job of guarding the 3-point arc. So at a number north of 3, we'll take the points with the UAB. I certainly think that you're getting an up and down game. Semi-total 165, also in on the over. Now here come the games that were supposed to be played yesterday that will be played today. 863, 864 on the betting board. Mercer, they're going to be on the road against West Carolina. West Carolina is a home underdog of 4 points on this game between 151 after a 152. Did set this total at a 147.5. I'm in on the under Western Carolina. I just don't know if they do their part with regards to this total. They are turning the ball over north of 17 times per contest, outside the top 350 in terms of ball security. Now it's a Mercer team that has had their difficulties as well with regards to being able to generate good, clean offense. Both of these teams are well outside the top 200 in terms of points scored on a per possession basis, as Mercer is turning the ball over 13 times per contest, but Mercer a top 55 team in terms of turnovers forced on a per possession basis. They are also outside the top 200 in terms of opponent's 3-point shooting percentage, but like what I'm seeing out of Abad Robinson, 16 points, 2.5 steals, right around about 5 assists per contest. You've also got Tyler Johnson shooting 41% from 3-point range. Angel Montas has been able to shoot more around 39.5% from 3-point range. Johnson gives you about 16 points per contest. Don't have a ton outside of Alex Holt down low. He's the only guy for this Mercer team that's really giving you north of 7 rebounds per game, but it's not like this Western Carolina team is actually batting down the hatches with regards to their rebounding. Bernard Polite has been able to give you 6+ rebounds per game, so he's been pretty rock solid for this unit, but Outside that, you just don't have a lot of, shall we say, consistent players for this team, as he's also been able to lead the way with about 13.5 points per game. And for Western Carolina, they're in the top 40 in terms of total possessions per game, and they don't have a single guy that gives you north of 2.2 assists per contest. And despite the up-tempo nature of the way that Western Carolina plays, they've only been able to break past the 70-point plateau once in their last 6 games. That is very concerning for this team, as they shoot as collective only 29.6% from 3-point. Cord Stansbury is able to give you about 11 points per contest, but just don't think that Western Carolina going to be able to hold up here. Do think that you get an up and down game with a lot of possessions, but I just think that there are going to be a lot of dead possessions, and I do think that Mercer finds a way to get the job done. I'm going to be willing to lay up to 5 with them, and then did semi-total 147.5 in on the under, 865, 866 on the betting board. Southern Indiana is on the road against Little Rock. Little Rock does find themselves as a 6.5 point favorite. Total odds game between 133 to a 134. Did semi-total at a 133, so you're at the 134 in on the under. And with Little Rock, I set them as a 7-point favorite. I'm going to be willing to lay up to 6.5 with them. With Little Rock, certainly have been dealing with a lot of injuries this year. KK Robinson, their top scorer from season ago. We still have yet to see him this far this season. I don't know if we're going to be seeing him at all this campaign, but that said, you've had Jonathan Lawson do a really nice job of helping run things for this team with 4 assists, 15 points, 6 rebounds per contest. Little Rock does need to clean up the turnovers. In terms of turnovers on a per possession basis, outside the top 350 in all of college basketball. That said, they're a top 15 team in terms of opponents' field goal shooting percentage. They're allowing opponents to shoot only about 28.5% from 3-point range. That's the top 50 mark in the country. And then Milwaukee Wilkerson, oh so versatile on the defensive side of things. Nearly 2 steals, 1.7 blocks, 14.5 points while shooting 37.5% from 3. Lawson shoots 40% from 3-point range. So Little Rock does a good job of atoning for the fact that they turn the ball over so much with their top flight scorers being able to shoot it so well from 3-point range. And for Southern Indiana, this team is very much built around their 3-point shooting, but it does take a little bit of a dive when they're on the road as well. This is a Southern Indiana team that when they're at home, they've been able to pop it from 3-point range at a clip of about 34% from 3-point range. It still maintains about 34% on the road as well, but we've been noticing that recently this team has been going through a little bit more of a skid with regards to that outside shooting. Having to go up against this Little Rock team, I think is going to be rough, even though you do have Jalen Randall, who's able to give you about 15.5 points per contest, but he's been out with an injury ever since New Year's Eve, so unlikely that he's going to be able to go here, and that's a big reason why we've been seeing the dive with regards to this Southern Indiana 3-point shooting. You still have Jared Washington, who's able to give you about 8 points per contest, and Stephen Olwani has been rock solid down low, about 15 points, 6.5 rebounds per game. I like what I'm seeing out of him in the post. Damani Harrison has had to become your main 3-point shooter, though, for the team, shooting about 41% from 3-point range, but outside of he and Randall, you don't have really anyone else on the roster that shoots above 32% from 3-point range. I think that that's a big giant issue for Southern Indiana. Big reason why we've seen them just not be as effective on the offensive side of things recently, so I do think that Little Rock going to be able to put the clamps down defensively. I think that Southern Indiana dealing with those ailments in the backcourt is going to prevent them from being able to get the job done. Set my line at a 7, so I'm willing to lay the 6.5 here with Little Rock. Did set my total at 133, so you're at the 134 in on the under as well. 867, 868 on the betting board. It is Charlotte, and they are going to be on the road facing off against Tulsa. Tulsa does find themselves as a favorite of 2.5 points. Shoutouts game is 143, and I personally think that the wrong team is favored. I said Charlotte is a favorite. I'm going to be one to take them outright on the money line. It's a Tulsa team that has just been struggling in so many different facets of basketball. It's a Tulsa team that is well outside the top 220 in terms of both points scored and points allowed on a per possession basis, and they're just not really giving you a lot from the outside as well. I do like the fact that you've been able to have Keeson Willis be able to give you north of 35% 3-point shooting. He's throwing in there 14 plus points per contest, but what else are you going to be able to get for the Tulsa team to be able to pop it from 3 there? 295th in all of college basketball with regards to their 3-point shooting percentage, and Charlotte is pretty much the same. They're shooting a little bit under 31% from 3-point. You do have Robert Briswell, who stands right around about 6'7". He's been able to give the team double figures. He's able to give you some good 3-point shooting for the Charlotte team, and they were dealing with the injury to Giancarlo Rosado towards the early part of the season. He's been able to come back, and he's been really versatile. Doesn't take a lot of threes, but he's shooting 42% for 3, while Briswell shoots 42% from the outside as well. Briswell about 12 points per contest, but Rosado 12 points, 6 boards, 2.5 assists per contest while standing 6'8", so good versatility there. While Jashawn Thomas, he's been able to throw in there about 11 points per contest. It is a Charlotte team that has very much been lacking with regards to their interior defense, as they're 339th in the country in terms of opponents' 2-point shooting percentage. They allow opponents to shoot only about 30% from 3-point range, so you shouldn't be seeing a lot of made threes in this game. For Charlotte, they do a nice job of being able to protect the ball, but they don't necessarily force a lot of turnovers as well. They turn the ball over about 9.8 times per contest. They generate fewer than 10 turnovers as well, and Charlotte plays at that very slow, controlled pace. Charlotte right now, in terms of total possessions per game, 276th in all of college basketball. This is a Tulsa team that's looking to go a little bit more up and down. They're more around 60th in the country, but with this Tulsa team, you really don't have a lot down low. Braden Carrington has been able to give you 5 rebounds per game, and you've been able to get a little bit more out of Ian Schmeichel, who's been able to give you about 6 or so rebounds per game. I've been liking what I've been seeing out of him, but I don't think that's going to be enough in this circumstance. I do like Charlotte to be able to get the job done. I did set my total at a 144.5, even though I do think that it's going to be a lower possession game. I do think that you are going to be able to get a lot of clean looks from the interior that does push this total over, perhaps some late game falling. So do like the over, and I do like Charlotte outright on the money line. This last game on the normal Las Vegas betting board before we hit the extra games, 869, 870. Chattanooga is going to be playing us VMI, and VMI is an underdog of 13.5 points. So this game is 149.5, and I set Chattanooga as a 13.5 point favorite. So if we can push up to a 14, I'd be willing to take a shot here on VMI. It's a VMI team that I've actually been pleasantly surprised by, and for Chattanooga, year in and year out, this is a team that they have their struggles on defense. They're back outside the top 200 in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis, and for Chattanooga, they're really allowing it from three-point range. At home, they're allowing opponents to shoot 40% from three-point range, and if I had to make a number on the 13.5 here, I would rather take the 13.5 rather than lay the 13.5 with VMI, because with VMI, you've been able to have Tam Izaglu do a nice job, be able to give you some nice clean offense. He's been able to dole out the ball with about 4.5 assists per game. Ricky Bradley, who transferred on over to Georgia Southern a few years ago, he came back into the program after beginning his career at VMI, and he, along TJ Johnson, have formed a nice 1-2 punch in the backcourt, a combined 28.5 points, 9 rebounds, and for Ricky Bradley Jr. from three-point range, he's been able to let it fly 40% from three-point range, and Agustinas Codelius has been able to also shoot right around about 43.5% from the outside, 15.5 points, 6.5 boards. I've been liking what I've been seeing there. Now, this is a VMI team that does get a little bit outdone on the glass on the defensive side of things, but on the offensive glass, they've been able to get about 12 offensive rebounds per game as well, so been liking what I've been seeing there. This is a VMI team that they themselves do give it up quite a bit from three-point range, and then you've got on the flip side, Hunter along Trey Bonham, a pair of guys that they both average north of 17 points per contest last season. Had a little bit of a rough go of it this season, but seem to be picking it up from three-point range, as now you've been able to get right in the neighborhood of about 12 to 13 points per contest out of both of these guys, and Bash Weiland has been able to do a nice job as an ancillary scorer as well, 13.5 points. Doesn't necessarily shoot it from three-point range the same way that Huff and Bonham do. They're combined to shoot about 34.5% from three-point range, but if that Frank Champion come in and lend a lot of versatility at 6'7", 9.5 points, 3.5 boards, 3 assists, was out towards the beginning part of the season, and ever since he's come in, this Chattanooga team has been much better and much cleaner with regards to their offense as well, because with Chattanooga, you really don't have anyone that gives you north of 5.5 rebounds per game. It's been a Chattanooga unit that they've been able to get past the 75-point barrier in all but one of their last 7 games, so I do think that Chattanooga going to be able to get things going a little bit more up and down in this game. I did set my total at a 151, so here at a 149.5 in on the over, and I would say at a 13.5 or higher, I'd be willing to take the points here with VMI. Now we hit the extra games.
The normal betting board picks are complete, but there are some extra games today, so we go into the bonus.
306, 633, 306, 634. Central Connecticut is playing host to Long Island. Long Island is an underdog of 7.5 to 8 points. So on scheme between 126.5 to a 127. I did set Central Connecticut as an 8-point favorite. So at the 7.5, I'm going to be willing to lay it. Central Connecticut has been one of the better mid-major defenses in all of college basketball. Top 125 team in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. To the credit of Long Island, getting back Brent Davis should be able to help out their overall turnovers. And this has been a top 145 team in terms of not allowing teams to be able to hit their threes or allowing opponents to shoot only about 32.5% from three-point range, so a lot of credit there, but this is a Central Connecticut team that they themselves are about 122nd in this category as well, and for Central Connecticut, you've been able to have Abdul Mamboa down low, be able to give you a $1.5 per contest. For Long Island, this has been a team that has been all over the place with regards to their offense. They're outside the top 250 in terms of points scored on a per possession basis, and Terrell Strickland has had to be one of the main men in the backcourt to be able to help out with what you've been able to get out of Malachi Smith. Smith comes over from Arizona State. He's been that top flight scorer, being able to give the team 15 plus points per contest, but does shoot less than 30% from three-point range. Strickland, he is the son of Rod Strickland. He's had to come in and be able to give this team a lot of versatility as he throws in there 8.5 points, 4.5 assists, 4.5 boards, a steal and a half per contest, and is shooting about 32.5% from three-point range, but as a whole, Long Island only shooting about 31.5% from the outside, and to the credit of this Long Island team, they don't allow a lot of second chance opportunities. Shardik Lassou has been able to give you 6.5 rebounds per game, so they've been able to do a rock solid job with that regard, but this is also a Central Connecticut team that I think is going to be able to do a pretty rock solid job in terms of generating more turnovers in this game, because you've been able to have some of these guys like Devontae Sweatman, Joe Ostrowski do a really good job with regards to their active hands on defense, combining for 2.5 steals per contest. They combine for 15 points per contest as well. And then you've got Darren Smith Jr., a nice 43.5% three-point shooter with about 7.5 points per contest to help out Jordan Jones, Devin Hyde in the backcourt, who have been combining for 25 points per contest. This is also a very smart Central Connecticut team. They allow the fewest free throw attempts of any team in all of college basketball, so they don't let you get cheap points at the free throw line, and I do think that that's going to be able to win out in this spot, and that's going to be able to keep things relatively low scoring. I did set my total of 130. Recognize that both of these teams outside the top 225 in terms of total possessions per game, but we've been seeing the Central Connecticut team being very efficient with their offense, 11 turnovers per game, top 65 unit in all of college basketball with regards to a field goal shooting percentage, so in on the over, and one to lay up to 7.5 with Central Connecticut. 306-635, 306-636. It is St. Francis of Pennsylvania on the road against Fairleigh Dickinson. Fairleigh Dickinson hopes to be fairly priced as a 3.5 to a 4-point favorite. Total on this game between 151 to 151.5. Semi-total 155.5. I'm in on the over. It's a Fairleigh Dickinson team that is once again in the top 50 in terms of total possessions per game. Back outside the top 300 in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis, but certainly a team that's looking to run it and gun it, and I do think that they take it out on a St. Francis of Pennsylvania defense that just frankly isn't that good. You don't have a lot down low with this team, though I do like what I'm seeing out of Bobby Rosenberger. Rosenberger has done a nice job. He's been able to supply this team with a double-figure amount of points per game, throws in their 5 rebounds per contest, and he's been able to get some nice help in the backcourt out of Riley Parker, 11 points, about 4 assists per contest, and St. Francis, relatively solid three-point shooting team. They shoot about 34.5% from three-point range. Parker has been the main guy from the outside, shooting about 39.5% from three-point range, but Jeremy Clayville, along with Juan Cranford Jr., both of these guys give between about 9 to 9.5 points per contest, and they both shoot above 41% from three-point range. The injury to Ace Tolbert has really been hurting them, but don't have really anyone other than Valentin Pinedo, who's been able to give you north of 5 rebounds per game. He was out for a little bit of time due to injury, so getting him back has been very helpful for this team, but for Fairleigh Dickinson, that's big for them because Fairleigh Dickinson, year in and year out, one of the shortest teams in all of college basketball, but they've got one of the best do-it-all sort of players in all of college basketball, as well as they've got a top 10 scorer in the country in Terrence Brown on their side. He's supplying the team with 6 boards, 3.5 assists, 21.8 points per game. Doesn't necessarily pop it well from 3 at about 31%, but Joel Emanuel, Dylan Jones, they combine to shoot north of 40% from 3. Both of these guys give you about 10.5 points per contest. Ahmed Barabe has been able to give you about 41% three-point shooting as well, with 9.5 points per contest. And for Fairleigh Dickinson, as a whole, they're shooting 36.5% from three-point range. That's been a top 80 mark in all of college basketball. And for Fairleigh Dickinson at home, they shoot 41.5% from three-point range. It's the St. Francis of Pennsylvania team that's really been letting up with regards to their three-point shooting defense. For St. Francis of Pennsylvania, they are outside the top 125 with regards to opponents' three-point shooting percentage, and when they're in a road/neutral court setting, it does get all the more worse for the St. Francis of Pennsylvania team, allowing opponents to shoot closer to about 35% from three-point range. So I do think that Fairleigh Dickinson going to be able to win this game from the outside. I set them as a 5.5 point favorite, so going to be one to lay up to 5 there. Did set my total 155.5, also in on the total over as well. 306-637, 306-638. Lemoyne is playing us a Mercyhurst. Mercyhurst, an underdog of 5 points, 134.5 to 135 is the total. Did set mine at a 132.5. I'm in on the under. Mercyhurst has been one of your slower teams in all of college basketball. When they were at the D2 ranks, Mercyhurst was very much a slow and controlled team as well. Right now, 360th in the country in terms of total possessions per game. Now, Mercyhurst not necessarily playing great defense despite playing super slow. They're 312th in the country in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. They're giving up a lot of wide open looks from three-point range, but you can say the same about this Lemoyne team with regards to their defense as well, outside the top 250 in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis, but within the top 165 in terms of opponents' three-point shooting percentage, and Mercyhurst just does not have a lot on the interior with a lot of these D2 teams. Typically, they're going to be a little bit shorter. They're not really going to have a lot of size, and that has been certainly the case for this team as you've got Aiden Reichert, who's able to give you about 5.5 rebounds per game. And then you get about 4.5 boards, 5.5 points out of Mykolas Ivanauskas. These are the lone two guys on the roster right now. They're giving you north of 2.8 rebounds per game, as this is a Mercyhurst team that with regards to rebound percentage, they're outside the top 325 in all of college basketball, though Jeff Plynudis has been able to give you 14.5 points, shoots 36.5% from three. Mercyhurst as a whole, they shoot about 32.5% from the outside. For Lemoyne, they're turning the ball over quite a bit more this year than they did a season ago, despite the fact that they bring in the Siena transfer and Zach Tekken, who's been able to give you 4.5 assists per contest. Team is committing about 14.5 turnovers per game, and they've dealt with a lot of injuries in the backcourt. Robbie Carpety has been in and out of the fold, but should be good to go in this one. Shooting in the mid-30s from three-point range. He's been supplying the team with 10+ points per contest, and then your top scorer has been O'Cypher Owens with about 13.5 points per game. He was dealing with an injury throughout much of December, but in the 3 games since he has returned, he has been able to give the team 51 points. He is coming off of just not shooting it very well from three-point range to begin the season at about 20%. Do think that that is going to be going a little bit northward, as last season he was shooting more in that neighborhood, about 32% from three-point range. And I do think that this Mercyhurst, just lack of defense in general, is going to allow for some open looks for this Lemoyne team, though it has been a Lemoyne team that has been a little bit restricted themselves with regards to their offense. I do think that this is going to be a lower possession game, but I do think that with the struggles that you've got down low for both of these teams outside the top 275 with regards to rebound percentage, it does cause for a little bit of a sloppier game. Semi-total 132.5. I'm going to be in on this total under, and with Lemoyne willing to lay up to 6 with them, set them as a 6.5 point favorite, and we wrap things up with 306-639, 306-640. It is Chicago State. They play us to Stone Hill. Stone Hill, a road favorite of 3 points. Dawn's game, it is 134.5. I set Stone Hill as a 8-point favorite. I'm going to be willing to lay it. Chicago State got a straight up win last week against Wagner. Yay, verily there, but this has been a unit that has been just absolutely awful. 363rd out of 364 teams in terms of points scored on a per possession basis. Chicago State outside the top 300 in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. They've been looking to play a little bit more up tempo. It just has not been working out for them. Meanwhile, you've got a Stone Hill unit that certainly has been outside the top 225 in terms of both points scored and points allowed on a per possession basis. But you've got Todd Baronga, who's been able to do a really good job of being able to give this team some nice versatility at 6'6". He's been able to shoot in the high 30s from three-point range, been able to supply this team with about 6 boards per contest. He throws in there 12.5 points per game, while Joshua Morgan has come on over from Incarnate Word, and he's been able to give the team some pop from three-point range, shooting about 40% from three, 13.5 points per contest. Stone Hill as a whole, they shoot 36.5% from three-point range, so that's been able to help them out quite a bit. It is a Stone Hill team that still has their difficulties with regards to taking care of the ball. They've been turning the ball over about 12.5 times per game, and the lone real saving grace for Chicago State is that they're still an okay team at being able to generate turnovers, but you just don't have a go-to guy in really any facet for the Chicago State team. You don't have a guy that gives you north of 5 rebounds per game. Right now, their top scorer in Noble Crawford is giving you 9.1 points per contest. Your top guy in terms of facilitation in Gabe Spinelli, he gives you about 2.3 assists per game. They've been dealing with the injury to Quincy Allen, a former top 150 recruit that wasn't even giving the team too much when he was out there on the court. Team is shooting 35.6% from the floor. Just very all over the place, unclean offense, and this is a Stone Hill team that, while they do leave a little bit of something to be desired on the defensive side of things, they've still been a relatively okay team at being able to guard the perimeter. They're allowing opponents to shoot about 32.5% from three. That's a top 160 mark in all of college basketball. Meanwhile, for Chicago State, the team has been allowing teams to shoot about 33.5% from three-point range, so I do think that that's going to meet the scoring just a little bit more, but this is a Chicago State team that has been looking to play quite a bit more up-tempo in terms of total possessions per game. It's a Chicago State team that is out checking in at 82nd in the country. Stone Hill not necessarily playing super duper up tempo, but they're one of the faster teams in the conference at about 280th in the country. They play about 2.5 possessions per game faster when they're on the road rather than at home. So did set my total 136 in on the over, and I'm going to lay with Stone Hill, and that'll wrap things up for the Sunday edition of Coast to Coast Hoops, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Big thanks to Sam Federman, who does great work over at Mid-Major Madness. He joined me in the last segment. If you do like what you're hearing from this fine podcast, Coast to Coast Hoops, you're able to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you have one of two ways we offer those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at GNet_D1. Keep in mind, letters EM, name me does not matter. So, as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. The other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. Coming at you guys every single day on this podcast, regular season and off season. So, I'll be back with you once again tomorrow. Thank you.